Hey yo, thanks for tuning in to The Source, your source for celebrity news. Check this out. A U.S. Army vet is suing T.I and Tiny for alleged SA. According to preliminary reports, the Army vet, which is filing under Jane Doe, says that T.I and Tiny assaulted her back in 2005, and T.I used his big toe to do his thing. Listen, I haven't even had a chance to go over this complaint yet, so we're getting ready to go over this together. And as always, I'm issuing a trigger warning. This particular video is going to deal with some serious issues related to SA. And if you have a sensitivity to that, or if you have experienced trauma, please turn off this video right now. Because even though I would love to get your like, by the way, hit that like button, what's more important to me is your mental health. Alright, the complaint was filed in the Superior Court of the State of California for the County of Los Angeles, and the plaintiff is Jane Doe versus Clifford Harris and individual PKA T.I, Tamika Harris and individual PKA Tiny, ABC Corp 120, 123 Corp, and Doe's 1 through 20 exclusive. The complaint for damages cites 1. Sexual battery, 2. Battery, 3. Sexual assault, 4. Negligence, 5. False imprisonment, and 6. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. It also goes on to say that plaintiff Jane Doe is demanding a jury trial. Okay, let's get started. It says plaintiff Jane Doe, by and through her attorney of record, alleges as follows. This draft complaint is being filed now to preserve the statute of limitations under the California Code of Civil Procedure Section 340.16 as amended by the Assembly Bill 2777. Jane Doe is securing her records, witness affidavits, and other supporting evidence. This case will be amended and refiled within the coming weeks. Alright, so now we're turning to page 2. It says 1. Plaintiff is a survivor of SA, S battery, S assault, and R at the hands of Clifford Harris and Tamika Harris in or around 2005. As a result, the plaintiff has suffered severe emotional, physical, and psychological injury, including humiliation, shame, guilt, economic loss, economic capacity, and permanent emotional distress. So that brings us to the next section, which is labeled parties, and it says 3. Plaintiff Jane Doe, hereinafter plaintiff. 4. Defendant Clifford Harris, professionally known as T.I, hereinafter T.I, is an American rapper, singer, songwriter, record producer, and actor. He rose to prominence in the early 2000s after releasing his album Urban Legend, which reached number 1 on the US Billboard Hot 100. He performs all across the nation, including California. 5. Defendant Tamika Harris, professionally known as Tiny, hereinafter Tiny, is an American singer, songwriter, and record producer. She's a member of the R&B group Escape. The group rose to prominence in the early 1990s after releasing their debut album Escape, which reached number 2 on the US Billboard Hot 100. She performs all across the nation, including California. The true names and capacities, whether individual, corporate, partnership, associate, or otherwise, of defendants, Doe's 1 through 20, inclusive, are unknown to plaintiff. Accordingly, plaintiff sues Doe's 1 through 20 by such fictitious names under Section 474 of the California Code of Civil Procedure. The plaintiff will seek leave to amend this complaint to allege their true names and capacities when they're ascertained. Plaintiff is informed and believes, and thereon alleges, that Doe's 1 through 20 is legally responsible in some manner for the events, happenings, and/or tortious and unlawful conduct that caused the injuries and damages alleged in this complaint. Alright, so the complaint goes on to say the exact same thing and use the same exact terminology, with the difference being the name for the next 2 defendants, which is 123 Corp and ABC Corp, because she's saying that she doesn't really know the names of these businesses yet. Listen, this means that her attorneys were like, yo, T.I got businesses. We don't know what all of these businesses are, but we're suing them. We're going to call them ABC in 1, 2, 3. Alright, so then it goes on to say, on information and belief, at all times material hereto, defendants were the agents, representatives, servants, employees, partners, and or joint venturers of each and every other defendant. They acted within the course and scope of said alternative capacity, identity, agency, representation, and or employment, and were within the scope of their authority, whether actual or apparent. Alright, so that brings us to the next section, which is jurisdiction, and it says T.I, Tiny, and Jones, collectively defendants, purposely availed or directed themselves to California jurisdiction by their minimal contacts with the state through being physically present in California in 2005 when they committed these acts alleged herein. And then it says plaintiff's lawsuit is timely. And this section just goes on to say that pursuant to like the new law, the SA Abuse and Cover-Up Accountability Act in California, she's able to sue T.I and Tiny. So that brings us to the facts of the case, and it says in or around 2005, plaintiff was serving the United States as a member of the U.S. Air Force. She was around 22 or 23 years old and was stationed in Los Angeles at the time. Rapper T.I is a rapper and actor with widespread popularity. Tiny was in a popular 1990s music group called Escape. Tiny and T.I have been married for 15 years starting in 2010. Defendants T.I and Tiny have an infamous reputation of drugging, kidnapping, falsely imprisoning, R-ing and assaulting women, and forcing them to engage in sexual acts with the couple for their own sexual gratification. Defendants T.I and Tiny have also been known to threaten individuals with violence, even having brandished a gun to a former employee who also experienced SA by the couple. Sometime in 2005, plaintiff and a friend attended a party with a man who went by the name of Caviar at rapper Coolio's house in Los Angeles, California. T.I and Tiny were supposed to be at the party. Upon information and belief, Caviar worked for T.I and Tiny at all relevant times and was acting within the course and scope of his employment and or as an accomplice with T.I and Tiny when he brought plaintiff and her friend to the club to meet T.I and Tiny. Hold up, I'm mad confused. How in the world did Coolio's house turn into a club all of a sudden? Alright, let's pick up where we left off. Upon information, Caviar worked as an agent of T.I and Tiny and worked at their bequest to solicit women to be drugged and SA'd by the couple. At the party, Caviar introduced plaintiff and her friend to rapper Lil Duval, who indicated T.I and Tiny were not going to come because they were out all day and that they would be at another club the following evening. The following evening, which was Saturday evening, plaintiff and a friend went to the unknown club somewhere in Los Angeles, California. This time, T.I and Tiny were present at the club and had a VIP section which plaintiff and a friend were escorted to. Caviar and Lil Duval were also present in the VIP section. Listen, if I'm going to a party with a dude and he says, yo, I know T.I and Tiny and they're supposed to be there. When we get there, I'm gonna introduce you. That's one thing. But I gotta tell you, I'm not going out specifically to another club to meet T.I and Tiny. Alright, so where were we at? We were in the VIP section. As they sat in the VIP section, plaintiff noticed that T.I and Tiny were whispering to each other and pointing to different women around the club in a suspicious manner. Over the course of being in the club, plaintiff ordered 2 amaretto sours. At some point, Tiny asked plaintiff what she was drinking. When plaintiff returned the inquiry, Tiny handed plaintiff a drink she had been drinking, but the plaintiff never saw her take a sip herself. Tiny watched her take the drink. At that time, plaintiff had no reason to believe the drink contained any drugs and allowed her friend to try some also. See, this is the type of dumb stuff that makes me mad. You don't know T.I and Tiny from a can of paint, so why would you take the drink? I mean, some people need to understand a very important fact. If you don't know somebody, you don't know them. And just because you saw them on TV or you heard them rap on the radio or you saw them on a stage does not mean that you know them. And if they hand you a cup of something and then they're watching you like an eagle drinking that cup of something, you stop drinking that cup of something. because there's a very high likelihood that they put a little something something in that cup of something. Alright, so it says, shortly after Tiny succeeded in having plaintiff taste her drink, T.I stated that he and Tiny were leaving the club. He asked plaintiff to join him, but indicated that plaintiff's friend could not join them. Caviar then indicated that plaintiff's friend could ride with him since they would be going to the same location. Plaintiff and a friend reluctantly agreed to be separated. Oh my goodness, have you guys never heard of like girl code number 260-2, which means we came together, we leave together? There's a reason why you do that, and that is to protect yourself. And then number 2, the minute that somebody says to you that you can come but your friend can't, that right there is a red flag, and you should be like, no thank you, and then go back home with your friend, especially when they're riding around in a car with a dude named Caviar. Anyways, once plaintiff left the club with T.I and Tiny, they got into an SUV with 2 other females that were at the club. They rode a short distance to a hotel. Once at the hotel, plaintiff T.I, Tiny, and the 2 unknown females went upstairs to the hotel room. T.I and Tiny's security guard also went into the room. T.I then handed the security guard his jewelry and the security guard left the room. Once the security guard left the room, Tiny saw one of the 2 unknown females was flirting with T.I too much, and she was ordered to leave. The other unknown female that was with her also left since they were together. See? You see how that works? Anyhow, once it was just T.I, Tiny, and a plaintiff in a room, T.I began giving plaintiff explicit detail and instruction for how the remainder of the night was gonna go. Plaintiff felt as if T.I was reciting a script that he had given multiple women that had been in the same position as her, and he and Tiny had likely brought several women back to the hotel on multiple occasions to assault and batter them as they were about to do plaintiff. T.I told plaintiff all 3 of them had to go freshen up in the bathroom. Once in the bathroom, Tiny took off plaintiff's clothing. Tiny also got naked and was wearing only a hair bonnet. I'm sorry, I know this is serious, but I mean, the thought of Tiny like standing in a bathroom naked with a hair bonnet is just a lot. Alright, so T.I then joined them in the bathroom, and he was also naked. Plaintiff was then directed to get into the shower, and T.I and Tiny entered the shower with her. Plaintiff was extremely shocked and uncomfortable. T.I had told plaintiff she looked better naked. Once in the shower, T.I told plaintiff Tiny would bathe plaintiff and T.I. T.I also pointed out a scar on plaintiff's abdomen and asked plaintiff if she had been shot, which plaintiff denied. Okay, wait a minute, we gotta stop here, cause I mean, I'm just envisioning this. They're butt naked, they're all in the shower, Tiny is like sudsing them up with the soap, and then T.I takes the time to stop and say, have you ever been shot? Listen, let me tell you something. If this story is not true, then this chick right here has a career as a fiction writer, because I'm telling you, how in the world do you make that moment up? Alright, so it says, plaintiff was then signaled to get into the bed with T.I. As plaintiff walked over to the bed, she felt extremely dizzy and lightheaded. Plaintiff could tell that she was experiencing something serious and debilitating that was not a symptom of a typical drink or a few drinks. Tiny stayed in the shower while T.I directed plaintiff to the bed, still naked and visibly drugged, because T.I indicated that Tiny was spotting due to her menstrual cycle. Ugh. When T.I and plaintiff were sitting on the bed, T.I turned on a rated X movie that he wanted them to watch so that he could get aroused. T.I then handed plaintiff a bottle of massage oil and demanded she begin rubbing oil on his back and naked body. Tiny then joined plaintiff and T.I on the bed. Tiny then began to rub plaintiff's back and buttocks, forcing her to lay face down on her stomach. Tiny proceeded to get on plaintiff's back while she was still naked and grind back and forth on plaintiff's back. Plaintiff began to feel sick, disgusted, and nauseated. While Tiny was straddled on plaintiff's back and pinning her down, T.I then proceeded to slide his toes into plaintiff's V. Plaintiff told him no, tried to move T.I out of her and away from her. T.I then said that he would go get a Jimmy hat, and Tiny continued to arouse herself by grinding on Plaintiff and massaging her backside. Plaintiff grew increasingly sicker and felt extremely ill by the assault and battery she was experiencing. While grinding on Plaintiff, Tiny also said that she wished that they were at her home so that she could F Plaintiff with her eggplant-shaped toy. Following this comment, Plaintiff forced herself up and went into the bathroom where she proceeded to vomit. T.I started to laugh and mock Plaintiff, saying, "Are you alright? Looks like you in last place." Plaintiff knew that she was drugged by Tiny and T.I with the drink Tiny handed her while she was still in the club for the purpose of essaying her and battering her. T.I then went over to Tiny and went down on her. At some point during the assault, Plaintiff heard T.I ask Tiny something about a situation involving Plaintiff or the one before. Plaintiff didn't know what he was referring to, but assumed that it was about another woman that they likely brought back to the room to be assaulted. After Plaintiff finished vomiting, she made her way back to the couch, naked, dazed, sickened, and weak. Plaintiff then passed out until the following morning. Plaintiff was awakened that Saturday morning by the security guard that she had seen the night before pounding on the door. By this point, Plaintiff was halfway on the floor and a robe had been thrown over the bottom portion of her body. Plaintiff also immediately noticed that her V was in serious pain and that she felt an itching and burning sensation in her V area as well. Plaintiff was crying and the security guard told her that she needed to leave. The security guard then grabbed Plaintiff's clothing with the exception of her drawers and escorted her out of T.I and Tiny's room. T.I and Tiny were both still in the bed as Plaintiff was escorted out of the room. Plaintiff then was picked up by her friend that had went with Caviar. Plaintiff's friend also believes that she was assaulted by Caviar that evening and forced to engage in non-consensual sex. Alright, so that's the end of that section. And the next section basically repeats a whole lot of stuff, so I'm not going to read it. But an important thing that she does say in the next section is this: Plaintiff did not consent to any of the SA or misconduct and did not have the capacity to consent after being drugged by the defendants. It also goes on to say that as a result of the defendant's above described conduct, Plaintiff has suffered and continues to suffer great emotional distress and was prevented and will continue to be prevented from performing daily activities and obtaining the full enjoyment of life. Now, in her prayer for relief, it says, "Wherefore Plaintiff prays for the following relief against defendants. 1. For past, present, and future general damages in the amount to be determined at trial. 2. For past, present, and future special damages, including but not limited to past, present, and future lost earnings, economic damages, and others in the amount to be determined at trial. 3. For any appropriate punitive and exemplary damages. 4. Any appropriate statutory damages. 5. For the cost of the suit. 6. For interest as allowed by law. 7. For attorney's fees pursuant to California Government Code and California Civil Code. 8. For such other and further relief as the court may deem proper." Listen, if this is true, it appears that T.I and Tiny have a well thought out system to carry out these assaults, and it appears that their whole crew is down with it. But as you know, T.I and Tiny are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But in this case, because it's civil, T.I and Tiny are innocent until jurors find that they are civilly liable for this particular assault. And I gotta say, this chick is gonna have an uphill battle, because I don't know how you prove in court that Tiny rode your back and that T.I thumped you with his toe. I mean, I don't know. Unless Caviar turns on T.I and Tiny, or the security guard decides to snitch, I don't know how you prove this. Listen, let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that T.I and Tiny are guilty of this assault? And if you do you think that she'll ever be able to prove this in court? Let me know what you think in the comments. And while you're down there leaving a comment, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Hey yo, thanks for tuning in to Celeb Source, your source for celebrity news. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Peace.